The world shattered at exactly 13:30 hours on June 6, 1944. A telephone's shrill ring cut through the mountain air at Berghof. Adolf Hitler's Alpine fortress had become a bubble of delusion. Reality crashed through that bubble with devastating force. The voice on the other end trembled with barely controlled terror. Mein Führer, Allied forces have established permanent footholds in Normandy. They show no signs of withdrawal. 9 hours had passed. 9 crucial hours while the fate of Europe hung in the balance. American troops had stormed ashore under withering fire. British commandos had scaled cliff faces. Canadian soldiers had pushed inland through deadly crossfire. The largest seaborne invasion in human history had unfolded while Germany's supreme leader slept peacefully in his mountain retreat. His staff officers paced the corridors like caged animals. Terror kept them silent. Standing orders forbade anyone from disturbing the Führer's sleep. His legendary rages were more frightening than enemy artillery. So they watched. They waited. They let invasion reports pile up like obituaries on their desks. Hitler emerged at 1300 hours that afternoon. He requested his usual late breakfast, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The world he entered bore no resemblance to the one he had left the night before. What followed would reveal not just military defeat, but something far more devastating: the complete collapse of Nazi command structure. The utter failure of German intelligence, the exposure of strategic delusions that had festered for years. The Atlantic Wall had consumed 3 years of German engineering. Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels had proclaimed it impregnable. 15,000 fortifications stretched from Norwegian fjords to Spanish beaches. 6.5 million mines waited beneath the surf. 500,000 obstacles lined the coastline like steel teeth ready to devour any invasion fleet. Behind this impressive facade lay a command structure fractured beyond repair. Competing egos had created strategic paralysis. Contradictory orders confused field commanders. A dictator's interference had grown increasingly irrational with each passing month. The central question had tormented German planners for months. Where should they meet the Allied invasion? 2 brilliant field marshals held opposite views. Their disagreement would prove fatal. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel had learned harsh lessons in North Africa. Allied air power had crushed his Africa core. He understood what others refused to acknowledge. German forces could not move freely under enemy skies. "The war will be won or lost on the beaches," Rommel had written to Armed Forces High Command. His words carried the weight of bitter experience. "We must destroy the enemy in the water. Stop him before he sets foot on land. If he establishes a beachhead, our cause is lost." Rommel's strategy demanded radical changes to German doctrine. Panzer divisions needed positioning within hours of the coast. They had to strike before Allied forces could consolidate, before naval gunfire could establish killing zones inland, before air superiority made daylight movement suicide. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt commanded all German forces in the West. He represented the old school. Traditional mobile warfare had brought Germany stunning victories in Poland, in France, in the early stages of the Russian campaign. Why abandon proven methods now? "Let them land," Rundstedt had argued in countless staff meetings throughout spring 1944. His weathered face showed confidence born of decades commanding armies. "Let them extend themselves inland, away from naval gunfire support. Then we destroy them with concentrated panzer counterattacks, in the interior where our armor can maneuver freely." This fundamental disagreement created the worst possible compromise. German armored reserves sat in positions that satisfied neither strategy. Too far from the coast for immediate intervention. Too close to naval guns for safe maneuvering. The 21st Panzer Division near Caen could potentially reach invasion beaches within hours, but the critical 12th SS Panzer Division sat 95 kilometers southeast of the likely landing zones. The Panzer Lehr Division waited 125 kilometers inland near Chartres. Hitler had made the paralysis complete. Standing orders required his personal authorization before any Panzer Division could move to contact. Even as Allied paratroopers descended through Norman darkness in the pre-dawn hours, German commanders with tanks within striking distance could only watch through binoculars and wait for permission that would come too late. Intelligence failures compounded command paralysis into disaster. German intelligence services had splintered into competing fiefdoms. The Abwehr under Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, the SD Foreign Intelligence Service under Walter Schellenberg, Foreign Armies West under Colonel Alexis von Roen. Each organization produced assessments that contradicted the others. All had been penetrated by Allied deception operations more sophisticated than any in military history. Operation Fortitude had convinced German intelligence that Normandy could only be a diversion. The real invasion would strike at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel, where the fictional 1st United States Army Group under General George Patton supposedly prepared for the decisive assault. German intelligence estimates placed Allied strength in Britain at 89 divisions. Actual strength was 47 divisions. More critically, they believed 50 divisions remained in southeastern England, ready to launch the real invasion after Normandy had drawn away German reserves. This fundamental misassessment meant that even as reports flooded in from Norman beaches, German high command remained convinced they witnessed an elaborate feint. The 15th Army, Germany's strongest force with 19 divisions, sat motionless near Calais throughout D-Day, waiting to repel an invasion that existed only in German imagination and carefully crafted Allied radio traffic. Weather had also lulled German defenses into fatal complacency. Meteorologists predicted storms that would make amphibious operations impossible for several days. Rough seas had already forced cancellation of naval patrols. The Luftwaffe had reduced alert status. Multiple division and corps commanders had departed for war games in Rennes. Rommel himself had left his headquarters on June 5th. He planned to celebrate his wife's birthday before continuing to Berchtesgaden. There he would petition Hitler personally for additional panzer divisions. At 0600 hours on June 6th, as American forces waded through the surf at Omaha Beach under murderous German fire, the Nazi military leadership was scattered across Europe. The Allied breakthrough represented far more than courage or numbers. It culminated years of coordinated planning that had revolutionized amphibious warfare. Technological innovation had solved problems that had seemed impossible. Operational security had hidden the largest military operation in human history until the moment of attack. The disaster at Dieppe on August 19, 1942, had provided the crucial lessons. That raid cost 3623 Canadian casualties in 9 hours of slaughter, but failure taught what success never could. Direct assault on fortified ports was suicide. Naval gunfire alone could not suppress coastal defenses. Armor support was essential from the first wave hitting the beach. Allied planners had learned those lessons perfectly. The solution came through Major General Percy Hobarts' 79th Armored Division. These weren't simply modified tanks. They represented a complete reimagining of how armies could fight from sea to shore. The DD, or duplex drive Sherman tank, could swim ashore using collapsible canvas screens and twin propellers. Direct fire support would arrive with the infantry in those critical first minutes, when seconds meant the difference between breakthrough and massacre. The AVRE armored vehicle, Royal Engineers, carried a 290mm petard mortar. Its 40-pound charges could destroy concrete fortifications that had seemed impregnable. Flail tanks cleared minefields with rotating chains that detonated explosives safely. Crocodile flame tanks projected burning death up to 120 yards. Technical specifications revealed the extraordinary industrial coordination behind Overlord. Allied planners calculated that 156,000 troops would require landing on D-Day itself, supported by 5,000 ships and landing craft, with 11,000 aircraft providing cover and support that the Luftwaffe could never match. No port could be captured intact. German defenders would destroy harbor facilities before retreating, so engineers designed two artificial harbors. The Mulberry harbors, each the size of Dover's port, would be towed across the Channel and assembled off the Norman coast. Each Mulberry required 600,000 tons of concrete and steel. Phoenix caissons, massive concrete structures standing 6 stories tall, would be sunk to form breakwaters. Floating roadways called whale bridges would connect shore to Liberty ships unloading supplies. Engineering specifications called for landing 12,000 tons of supplies and 2,500 vehicles daily once established. Pluto, pipeline under the ocean, represented another technical marvel that German intelligence had completely missed. Engineers had developed flexible steel pipelines that could be laid across the Channel floor, pumping 1 million gallons of fuel daily directly from England to France. Without captured port facilities, this pipeline would prove essential to maintaining Allied offensive momentum. The deception operation supporting D-Day elevated military subterfuge to an art form that has never been equaled. Operation Bodyguard employed every available method to mislead German intelligence. Double agents, all controlled by British intelligence through the double-cross system, fed carefully crafted misinformation to their German handlers. Most critical was Agent Garbo, Spanish national Juan Pujol Garcia, whom German intelligence considered their most reliable source in Britain. Garbo's network of fictional sub-agents, all creations of British intelligence, provided steady streams of intelligence, information that confirmed German preconceptions about Allied intentions. In the weeks before D-Day, Garbo reported troop movements that didn't exist, equipment sightings that were deliberately staged, strategic discussions that were carefully scripted, all designed to reinforce the Pas-de-Calais deception. On June 5th, Garbo transmitted a message warning of imminent operations, but deliberately timed to arrive after German intelligence officers had gone off duty. This preserved his credibility while ensuring the warning came too late. The Phantom Army created by Operation Fortitude employed unprecedented technological deception. Dummy landing craft constructed from canvas and scaffolding filled harbors in southeastern England. Inflatable tanks and artillery pieces populated fake encampments. Signals units broadcast endless radio traffic mimicking corps and army headquarters. German reconnaissance flights photographed exactly what Allied planners wanted them to see: an enormous force preparing to strike at Calais. The deception was so complete that even after D-Day succeeded, German High Command continued expecting the real invasion. Allied codebreakers at Bletchley Park had achieved what German commanders considered impossible. They had broken the Enigma cipher machine. Through ultra-intelligence, Allied commanders could read German military communications almost in real time. This provided insights into German dispositions, reinforcement schedules, and, critically, confirmation that deception operations were working perfectly. Ultra-intercepts revealed that German commanders remained convinced the Normandy landings were diversionary. Even as their coastal defenses crumbled under Allied assault, they expected the real blow to fall at Calais. Air superiority that would prove decisive on D-Day resulted from systematic destruction of the Luftwaffe in the months preceding invasion. Operation Point Blank, the combined bomber offensive, had deliberately targeted German aircraft production and fuel supplies. By June 1944, the Luftwaffe could muster only 319 aircraft to oppose the invasion. The Allies would fly 14,674 sorties on D-Day itself. German fighters managed only 319 sorties during the entire day. The sky belonged to the Allies so completely that German ground forces felt naked under constant observation and attack. Allied naval gunfire provided another technical advantage that German coastal defenders had not adequately prepared for. The invasion fleet included 7 battleships, 2 monitors, 23 cruisers, and numerous destroyers, all capable of delivering precision fire support for advances up to 20 miles inland. Fire control systems had been refined through Mediterranean operations. Ships could provide accurate supporting fire that moved with advancing troops. The coordination between air, naval, and ground forces represented operational integration that Wehrmacht doctrine had never achieved. Forward air controllers accompanying assault troops could request airstrikes on specific targets within minutes. Naval gunfire liaison teams directed ship bombardment with unprecedented accuracy. This combined arms approach, coordinated through reliable radio communications and supported by detailed pre-invasion planning, created a system that could adapt to battlefield developments in real time. The first coherent reports reaching German high command came not through official channels, but through frantic radio transmissions from coastal observation posts beginning at 200 hours on June 6th. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich August Freiherr von der Heide, commanding the 6th Fallschirmjäger Regiment, transmitted from his position near Sainte-Mère-Église. Massive parachute drops occurring across entire sector. Estimate battalion strength minimum. Request immediate reinforcement. At 0300 hours, the 716th Infantry Division headquarters in Normandy reported to 7th Army Command. Paratrop landings confirmed across multiple zones. Communications disrupted. Heavy bombing of coastal positions ongoing. The message reached General Friedrich Dollmann, commanding 7th Army, who faced the paralyzing dilemma of Hitler's standing orders. He could not commit armored reserves without authorization from Berchtesgaden. The critical failure occurred between 400 and 630 hours. Dawn broke over the Norman coast. The largest armada in human history materialized offshore like something from mythology. German commanders with divisions capable of reaching the beaches within hours could only watch through binoculars and request permission to move. Major General Edgar Feuchtinger commanded the 21st Panzer Division stationed just 15 kilometers from the coast. He received reports of British glider landings near his headquarters at 0230 hours. His panzers could have reached Sword Beach before the first British troops waded ashore. His requests to engage were denied pending authorization from above. At 0600 hours, American forces began their assault on Omaha Beach under murderous fire from the 352nd Infantry Division. General Alfred Jodl, Hitler's chief of operations staff, refused to wake the Führer. The situation is unclear, Jodl told staff officers, requesting authorization to release panzer reserves. We must wait for better intelligence before disturbing the Führer with preliminary reports. The turning point came at 1000 hours. Major General Wilhelm Richter, commanding the 716th Infantry Division defending Gold and Juno beaches, transmitted his final coherent report. Enemy has achieved penetration at multiple points. Positions overrun. Cannot hold without immediate armored support. Situation critical. The transmission ended abruptly as British forces overran his headquarters bunker near Courseulles-sur-Mer. Hitler finally received his briefing at 13:30 hours, 9.5 hours after the first paratroopers landed. According to testimony from Generals Jodl and Wilhelm Keitel recorded at the Nuremberg trials, Hitler's first reaction was dismissive. "This is the diversion we expected. The real invasion comes at Calais. We hold the reserves for the main attack." Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt requested immediate release of the 12th SS Panzer and Panzer Lehr divisions at 1400 hours. Hitler authorized only limited movement. One division to move toward Caen. The others remain in position to counter the Calais invasion. This single decision effectively surrendered the battle. The 21st Panzer Division, finally authorized to attack at 1500 hours, advanced toward the British beachhead. But they encountered the full weight of Allied naval gunfire. Captain Wilhelm von Gottberg, commanding the division's 22nd Panzer Regiment, later testified that concentrated naval bombardment destroyed 40% of his armor before reaching the coast. By 1600 hours, situation reports painted a picture of catastrophe. The 352nd Infantry Division on Omaha Beach had fought magnificently throughout the morning. They reported ammunition critically low, casualties exceeding 50%, American forces advancing inland. Cannot hold positions beyond nightfall. Colonel Walter Cortes, commanding Artillery Regiment 352, transmitted at 1645 hours. Observed ships extending to horizon. This is no diversion. Request permission, withdraw to secondary positions. Permission was denied. At 1730 hours, German commanders received the intelligence assessment they had dreaded. Luftwaffe reconnaissance, flying one of the few sorties managed that day, confirmed Allied ships numbering in the thousands. The pilot's report was stark. Invasion fleet extends across 50-mile front. Estimate 4,000-plus vessels. Continuous landing operations all beaches. This is the main invasion. Field Marshal Rommel, racing back from Germany, did not reach his headquarters at La Roche-Guyon until 2200 hours. His chief of staff, General Hans Speidel, briefed him on the day's disasters. According to Speidel's post-war testimony, Rommel's response was immediate and devastating. "The war is lost. We have lost the decisive battle. Everything I warned about has come to pass." The final crushing blow came through radio intercepts. At 23:15 hours, German listening posts recorded massive radio traffic from southeastern England. The phantom 1st U.S. Army Group that supposedly awaited the Calais invasion. Intelligence officers reported to OK Fusag remains in England. No signs of movement toward embarkation. Normandy may be the Schwerpunkt, main effort. But this realization came 17 hours too late. By midnight on June the 6th, 156,000 Allied troops occupied French soil. 5 beachheads extended 24 miles along the coast, penetrating up to 6 miles inland. The Atlantic Wall, 3 years in construction, had been breached in a single day. More critically, the window for immediate armored counterattack had closed. The crucial first 24 hours when beachheads remained vulnerable. German commanders had waited for authorization that came too late, remained convinced they faced a deception until reality could no longer be denied. The psychological collapse within German high command manifested not in a single moment, but through cascading realizations. Each day brought fresh intelligence that contradicted fundamental assumptions. Each revelation further paralyzed an already dysfunctional command structure. June 7th, D+1, 0800 hours. Intelligence summaries confirmed that Allied forces had successfully linked 4 of 5 beachheads. Only Omaha remained partially separated from adjacent beaches. Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights, the few that survived overwhelming Allied air superiority, reported construction of artificial harbor facilities already beginning off the Norman coast. General Gunther Blumentritt, Chief of Staff to von Rundstedt, recorded in his daily log, "The artificial harbors confirm this is no raid. Enemy intends sustained operations from Normandy." Our entire strategic assessment was flawed. The 15th Army, Germany's strongest force with 19 divisions, remained frozen near Calais on June 7th, still awaiting the real invasion. Hitler and OKW intelligence continued believing Normandy was diversionary, but field commanders witnessing the buildup firsthand knew differently. Lieutenant General Hans von Salmuth, commanding 15th Army, sent increasingly urgent requests. "Normandy fighting requires immediate reinforcement. Request authorization to move divisions south." Each request was denied. The phantom army that existed only in German imagination held Germany's most powerful force immobile while Normandy burned. By June 8th, the psychological impact extended beyond operational paralysis to something more fundamental: a crisis of confidence in German military leadership. Field commanders who had faithfully executed Hitler's orders for 5 years began questioning whether orders from Berchtesgaden reflected battlefield reality. Colonel General Friedrich Dollmann, commanding 7th Army, suffered what medical officers termed nervous exhaustion. His chief of staff effectively assumed command, while Dollmann remained in his quarters unable to function. Statistics accumulated like successive hammer blows to German morale. By June 10th, Allied forces had landed 326,000 troops, 54,000 vehicles, 104,000 tons of supplies. German reinforcements attempting to reach Normandy faced systematic destruction. The 2nd SS Panzer Division, Das Reich, moving from southern France, required 17 days to cover 450 miles, a journey that should have taken 3 days. Allied air power transformed every daylight movement into a death trap. Division Commander SS Brigade Führer Heinz Lammerding reported losing 1,500 men and 130 vehicles before reaching the battle zone. The railway interdiction campaign revealed the depth of Allied planning. Systematic bombing had destroyed 76 of 80 railway bridges over the Seine River. Reinforcements from Germany had to detour hundreds of miles, then move by night through secondary roads where French resistance fighters harassed every column. The 275th Infantry Division required 12 days to move from Brittany to the front, a distance of 150 miles. Radio intercepts revealed psychological disintegration among German field commanders. On June 11th, Signals Intelligence recorded a transmission from an unnamed regimental commander to division headquarters. "My men ask why the Luftwaffe does not come, why our panzers do not arrive. I have no answer that they believe. Morale is critical." Such communications had been unthinkable in previous campaigns. The command crisis reached its breaking point on June the 12th. Rommel and von Rundstedt requested a meeting with Hitler to advocate strategic withdrawal from Normandy to more defensible positions. According to testimony at post-war trials, both field marshals arrived at Berchtesgaden prepared to explain why current strategy courted disaster. Hitler refused to see them together, receiving each separately to prevent unified opposition to his directives. When Rommel outlined the situation, overwhelming Allied air superiority, inadequate reinforcements reaching the front, unsustainable casualties, deteriorating morale, Hitler's response revealed complete detachment from battlefield reality. According to Rommel's chief of staff, who debriefed the field marshal afterward, Hitler declared, "You must hold every meter. No withdrawal. New weapons will turn the tide." When Rommel pressed for details about these weapons, Hitler spoke vaguely of jets and rockets, that would soon devastate Allied forces. Von Rundstedt's separate meeting produced similar results. When he outlined the strategic necessity of creating mobile reserves by shortening defensive lines, Hitler responded with accusations of defeatism. According to von Rundstedt's testimony at Nuremberg, Hitler stated, "The Atlantic Wall must be held. Any commander who speaks of withdrawal is dismissed." Psychological impact extended to German soldiers witnessing material disparity firsthand. Captured documents and prisoner interrogation revealed troops comparing their situation to the Eastern Front's worst moments. A letter from an Unteroffizier of the 356th Infantry Division, intercepted by Allied intelligence, stated, "We fight well, but it means nothing. For every shell we fire, they fire 50. For every plane we see, they have hundreds. This is not war. This is extermination by industrial production." By June 12th, German casualties in Normandy exceeded 26,000 men killed, wounded, or captured. Allied casualties totaled 52,000, but their replacement system delivered fresh troops daily. German reinforcements never arrived in sufficient numbers. More significantly, the Wehrmacht had lost irreplaceable formations. Elite panzer and parachute divisions, committed piecemeal to counterattacks, were being systematically destroyed, without achieving operational objectives. The failure of German High Command's response to D-Day represented more than tactical defeat. It exposed fundamental contradictions within Nazi military structure. Contradictions that would characterize the Reich's collapse over the following 11 months. Decisions made between June 6 and June 12, 1944, created a template of dysfunction, a pattern that would repeat across every subsequent crisis until final surrender in May 1945. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, chief of OKW, testified at Nuremberg that D-Day revealed what senior commanders had privately understood but never openly acknowledged. The Führer's military judgment had become detached from operational reality. His refusal to authorize tactical withdrawals, his insistence on holding every position, his belief in wonder weapons rather than sound strategy, these cost us the war in the West before summer ended. Command paralysis that kept German armor immobile during D-Day's crucial first 24 hours was not an aberration. It was the logical result of Hitler's centralization of military authority. General Günther Blumentritt, analyzing the campaign post-war for U.S. military historians, explained, "A corporal commanded field marshals. Local commanders who understood battlefield conditions could not act. Distant commanders who could authorize action did not understand conditions. This gap between authority and knowledge proved fatal." Statistical evidence confirmed the catastrophic nature of German defeat. By June 30th, less than a month after the invasion, German casualties in Normandy exceeded 80,000 men killed, wounded, or captured. 8 divisions had been destroyed as effective fighting forces. The Panzer Lehr Division, one of Germany's elite armored formations, reported on June 29th that it retained only 40 operational tanks from an initial strength of 190. Its commander, General Fritz Bayerlein, transmitted, "My division is finished, can no longer conduct offensive operations." More significantly, Germany's strategic situation had become untenable. The two-front war that German military planners had warned Hitler against in 1941 now consumed German forces at unsustainable rates. In June 1944 alone, Wehrmacht casualties across all fronts exceeded 450,000, 150,000 in the West, 300,000 in the East. Germany's monthly tank production averaged 670 units. The Soviet Union produced 2,000. American industry produced 2,100. The mathematics of industrial warfare had become undeniable. Psychological impact on German field commanders manifested in unprecedented ways. On July 17th, Allied fighter bombers strafed Rommel's staff car, severely wounding the field marshal who had warned Hitler that Normandy's loss meant losing the war in the West. On July 20th, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg's bomb exploded in Hitler's conference room at Rastenburg. The most serious of multiple assassination attempts by military officers who concluded Germany's only hope lay in removing Hitler. Negotiating armistice with the Western Allies. The conspiracy involved dozens of senior Wehrmacht officers, including Field Marshal von Witzleben, General Ludwig Beck, and numerous others who had concluded Hitler's leadership guaranteed Germany's destruction. The plot's failure and subsequent executions of over 5,000 suspected conspirators, including Rommel, forced to commit suicide in October, further paralyzed German military effectiveness. Surviving commanders understood that questioning orders now invited execution. General Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, wrote in his post-war memoir, Crusade in Europe. German High Command's failure to commit armored reserves on D-Day remains one of history's decisive command failures. Had those panzers struck our beaches in the first 24 hours, while we remained vulnerable, the outcome might have been vastly different. Their hesitation gave us the foothold that nothing could then dislodge. Military historians analyzing German command decisions identified multiple interconnected failures. The intelligence disaster, believing Normandy was diversionary, stemmed from Hitler's tendency to accept intelligence confirming his preconceptions while dismissing contradictory evidence. The command paralysis, requiring Hitler's authorization for operational decisions, reflected his distrust of professional military officers. The strategic inflexibility, refusing tactical withdrawals to create mobile reserves, represented his belief that willpower could overcome material disadvantage. Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov, speaking to historians in 1966, offered the Eastern Front perspective. D-Day forced Germany to fight the two-front war we needed them to fight. But more importantly, it demonstrated that Hitler would interfere in military operations even when such interference guaranteed defeat. This we had already learned in 1941 to 1943. The Western Allies learned it in 1944. Hitler's greatest gift to us was his refusal to let competent commanders command. Allied assessment, completed by Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in September 1944, concluded, German defensive doctrine proved sound. German fortifications were formidable. German soldiers fought courageously. But German command structure was dysfunctional. German intelligence was catastrophically flawed. And German strategic leadership was divorced from operational reality. These institutional failures, not Allied superiority in courage or tactical skill, decided Normandy's outcome. Final accounting revealed the scale of German disaster. By September 1st, when Allied forces liberated Paris and reached the German border, Wehrmacht losses in the West totaled over 500,000 casualties. 28 divisions had been destroyed. Germany had lost France, its Atlantic Wall, and most critically, the strategic initiative. From D-Day forward, Germany fought a defensive war of retreat that could end only in unconditional surrender. The beaches of Normandy witnessed German High Command's failure crystallized into catastrophe, demonstrating the ultimate truth of industrial age warfare. Victory requires not merely brave soldiers and strong fortifications, but also coherent command structures, accurate intelligence, flexible doctrine, and above all, strategic leadership grounded in operational reality rather than ideological fantasy. On all these measures, German High Command failed comprehensively on D-Day, ensuring that the 1,000-year Reich would endure only 11 more months.